Hi everyone, it's Shar and welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new here. I am so excited because today I am playing with the new high school years pack. Now, if you're new to my channel, I build however I want to build. I don't limit myself to certain packs, but I definitely try to build with as many packs as many packs. I did build with a lot of packs. I try to build with as much of the high school pack as I could. As you can see from the thumbnail of this video, I want to do 3 teen bedrooms for teen triplets who are opposites. Of course, I already have Sims in mind. These are the Sims from my Not So Berry challenge. So I'm on Gray Gen of Not So Berry, and Gray Gen has triplet children. We have Iris, we have Cassia, and we have Axel. Now, this first room here is for Cassia, who's a loner sim. I imagine her being somewhat gothic, so that's kind of the vibe that I went for. I also like it because they are goths, so Nova herself is a goth. Of course, her children are part of that room separately. They do eventually, or I do plan to make them part of the new goth household, especially since we have circular rooms with the new patch update. Speaking of the patch update, if you're not in the Sims world, you don't keep up with Sims news, you haven't played it, you didn't update your game, this broke the game so much. I am talking like Sims getting crushes on their family members, their father, their sisters, their cousins. I'm talking Sims aging up anytime you enter build mode or Cass or the loading screen. It is just a mess, and I'm not willing to risk my save file for it, which means I'm not going to be having any actual gameplay, which is fine for now, because what I'm super excited about is actually the build and buy. More than any other pack that I've played with, this build and buy is super cute. I love all of the stuff, and it just gives me so many ideas for how to truly customize a teen bedroom, which I think is something we've been missing in the game, and that The Sims often feels like a young adult simulator. Everything you do is for young adults, and this stuff that came in the pack feels a little bit younger, which I really love. It does feel like a teen room. Now, the circular walls are not perfect at this point. It definitely takes some getting used to, especially if you combine it with platforms like I've done in this room and in the final room that you are going to see. It was a pain in my ass. For some reason, it considers them 2 separate rooms. It took so much work and effort, but I was able to get it to the point that I am happy with. And when I finish the entire new version of the Goth Mansion, these rooms will be in it, because that's where Nova and her kids. Now, I do end up loving how all of the rooms turn out, and I use a lot of the same stuff for each room, yet all of the swatches feel so different and unique for all of them that they feel like completely different rooms. Like, Cassia's room is obviously a goth gamer room. I imagine Cassia as someone who's really into space, who's really into gaming, streaming. She's not so much like a social person in real life, but she absolutely loves playing games and recording videos and streaming. I gave her lots of that kind of stuff. She's also pretty creative and artistic, so I made sure to give her some like posters just to show all of her interests, but also her easel so that she can go ahead and paint. I like what I did with this painting, where I just kind of scooted it up above her little wardrobe section. And I just honestly had so much fun playing with this pack. It took me 2.5 hours to build all 3 of these bedrooms, but I wanted to customize them, and I find that building is so much more fun when you have teens in mind, when you have Sims in mind. So I am really happy with how Cassia's bedroom turns out. I struggled with some of it because I didn't want it to feel like everything was in black, so in the end I went with the color scheme of blacks and blues with little pops of color from her posters. I think that Cassia's personality is pretty obvious in this room, and I'm super happy with how it turned out. I gave her a little Foxberry flag as well, because I imagine that Cassia would want to go to Foxberry and study something related to technology. Obviously, if you don't know these Sims, the story doesn't really mean much to you. If you haven't seen my Not So Berry challenge, you wouldn't know who these Sims are. But I think that this could apply to a good number of Sims that you might be playing with if you have more of like a gothic kid who likes gaming. This is definitely a good room for them. I was trying to upload them to the gallery, but as I mentioned, playing with the circular walls and the platforms at the same time really made it hard for the game to recognize the room, and it was splitting it up into very odd sections, which meant that I couldn't upload the room all at once. So as I said, what I'm going to do is finish the Goth Mansion. These rooms will be in it, and then you can take the ones that you want and put them into your own build when I have them up on the gallery. Now, I wanted Cassia's room to be pretty cluttered on the wall because I imagine her as a sim who really likes to have a ton of artistic expression, but I didn't want it to be cluttered in the space because I see Cassia as a neat sim, someone for whom clutter on the floor, on her tables, and things like that would really give her a lot of anxiety. So I've toned it down a little bit. I went for this vampire's wall with that kind of eco lifestyle brick accent, which I think works really well for the sim, and it added that personality because with the original all brick walls, it kind of looked like a very decorated cell. It was just very cold in its nature. So I like the vampire's wallpaper, and I think it fits with that goth aesthetic, her actually being a sim in the goth family, and also just her general taste and preference. Something I also made sure to play a lot with when building the original room downstairs was lighting, but I made an exact copy of it, and now we are working on Iris's bedroom, Iris being the twin sister of Cassia, who lives downstairs, and of course the purple generation of Not So Berry. So this room is going to be very, very purple. I will say I was kind of inspired by like early 90s, early 2000s, late 90s TV shows, definitely giving me Totally Spies vibe, what I go for in this room. But Iris is our purple gen, and I love how her room turned out. I think it feels a little bit younger than her siblings in some way, but I do see Iris as being a little bit more of a bubbly sim to start with, because let's remember that she is the mother of the orange generation of Not So Berry, and orange does become a criminal. So I'm trying to lay some groundwork and foundations to just have more context as to why our orange sim decides to become a criminal and what their relationships looked like prior to this point. At this point, I decide to completely rearrange the rooms and remove the platform just because it was annoying to work with downstairs, and ultimately because Iris has to be a dancer, she needs a dance floor mat. I also see her being a cheerleader, so I gave her a cheer mat, so she just needed more floor space, and the platform was taking up quite a bit of it. So you can see we are already at completely opposite from her sister's room downstairs, but in the end, I'm super happy with how it turns out. There's definitely a clear color scheme of lots of purple and pinks, but I break it up with plants, with pops of teal and blue, using that back accent wall as the inspiration behind it. I wish that the windows weren't black inside, but they do live in the Goth Mansion, or they will live in the Goth Mansion, and the entire exterior is black. You can see that that one window actually stays white, even though it's the exact same swatch as the other windows. And this was an issue that I encountered in building this lot. For some reason, the window swatches aren't changing, so it will stay the default color, but if you copy and paste it, it will copy and paste to the swatch that you selected, but not change that window color, which I just thought was super annoying, but I do go back and fix it. I did debate between two beds for Iris, but I went for this one that has like this very funky pattern on it, just again to lean into the idea that it's like an early 2000s bedroom. This will be the first generation in my Not So Berry challenge and in The Sims, where they will have social media in a way that is highly interactive. Of course, they've always had Simstagram and that other platform that they use, the celebrity one, I don't know. But I did decide, because they're going to be our first like social media gen, I wanted the room to be a kind of callback to the early 2000s, and I'm super happy with how it turns out. And much like Cassia's room downstairs, Iris's room is a good reflection of her personality. Now, the trippy thing about building these rooms is that they're not teenagers yet. I'm just assuming what they may be like based on the fact of how they were when they were toddlers. And of course, for Iris, she has certain things that she has to accomplish as part of Not So Berry, but I haven't been able to play with them as children because they aged up into children right before the patch. And again, I'm not willing to risk my save file in order to play them, just because the aging thing, them dying, it's not going to be a good time. So I'm going to end up instead, like I said, just playing more with the build and buy stuff in the high school pack. I'm going to be playing with the creative sim aspects of it as well and creating some teams, because I don't want my Sims to walk around and meet random townies. I'm controlling every single aspect of their life, including who they meet. Now, unlike Cassia, Iris is definitely a little messier, and I think that makes sense because her mom is great. Gen of Not So Berry, who's one of the traits is a slob. So that makes sense to me, and I put up her cheer pom-poms on the wall. I was gonna do like 4, but I hated that pattern, so I just did 2 with the school colors of like the blue and white, and just lots of piles of clothes everywhere. Lots of clutter everywhere. It's definitely gonna be a little bit more filled, but not quite as filled as in some ways Cassia's room is, because so much of her wall space is filled. I love all the decor items in here. Most of this room is actually from the high school pack, and you can just tell how really cute it is. I really love how everything turns out, and it just feels like such a cozy space. Now, with that said, I don't have much else to tell you about the rooms for these Sims without repeating myself, so let me tell you about what is going on in my life. Yesterday, I had to go to the doctor to replace my Nexplanon. If you don't know, it's this birth control implant that they put in your arm. The reason I'm telling you this is because it fucking hurts so much. This is my second time replacing it, so it lasts for 3 years, and each time there's the possibility of it building scar tissue around it. So the doctor literally has to rip it out of your arm after cutting into it with a scalpel. And it hurt, bestie. It freaking hurt. But they do numb you. It's just afterwards there's a lot of soreness because of how much pressure is required to shove it into your muscle. So my arm hurts, which is why building is also working really well for me, because I can only play with one hand right now. And if you haven't seen me building my Sim self, that video, which I'll link somewhere in this video, I was speaking a lot about being in a crossroads in my life and really wondering what my next steps were and what I wanted my life to look like, especially as someone who doesn't dream of marriage. I'm demi-romantic. I don't feel romantic attraction without a deep emotional connection, and therefore I don't fantasize about things like marriage. I don't want kids. I've never wanted kids. I continue to not want kids. And as I approach my 30s, I think about, well, what are my next steps? What does happiness look like for me? And for me, that does mean a change in careers and perhaps a change in location. By the way, we've moved on to Axel's bedroom. Axel is the boy within the triplets. I really struggled with Axel's bedroom just because his personality for me is the least defined. I know that he's super creative and sweet, very, very artsy. His favorite toy to play with was a makeup set when he was a kid, but I don't know much beyond that. Like, Cassia and Iris had such distinct personalities that it was hard to work with. By the way, there's an exact swatch that matches, and you can see that I'm trying to find the one that also has the white trim. It doesn't exist. It does not exist. So our back wall has to have the white trim, and the rest of our walls don't. Here's where I notice that there's way too many windows, so I remove all of the middle windows here. And for Axel's bedroom, I just try to keep it very soothing and relax. I stuck with the color schemes of pretty much the back wall. These very soft kind of mint greens and yellows is what I ended up going with for the bedroom. There's some sense of personality in the room, but I think of all of the rooms, it is the most generic. This rounded platform that I put his bed on was such a pain in the freaking butt because the floor is not angling into it correctly. It should be underneath it, but for some reason it's trying to angle upwards, as well as downstairs and Iris's bedroom, there's this weird white visual glitch. Not a big deal. You don't see it unless you're rotating at certain angles, but you can see it. It's because it's coming from the platform. So I might try to redo that later on. And for Axel's bedroom, I see him as being a little bit of a combination of his parents and his siblings. He has his own distinct personality, but he loves movies, he loves fitness, he loves video games. He's not super into computers or streaming though, and he's very artsy. Cassia is also artsy, but he's more committed. Well, not more committed. He likes painting a little bit more than Cassia does. So they share that love, but I think in my mind that Axel has gotten actually pretty well known for his paintings, even though he's a teenager, just super involved into it. But I was telling you. So I think that for myself and my life, I think that it not only involves a change in career, but it might also involve a change in location. For the fall, I'm planning to live in the UK for a few months, and I'm actually in the process of getting a 2-year work visa to go live in the UK for 2 years. But I want to trial it first because as a US citizen, I can go to the UK and stay there for up to 6 months. Obviously, I can't work, but that's fine. And I'm just going to try to travel it out. I studied abroad in London a few years ago. I've been back to London since then. It continues to be one of my favorite cities in the world. I absolutely love being there. But living there for an extended period of time is obviously different. So I do want to go and trial it. The challenge with that is trying to find a short-term let when I am not in the UK. But I also decided that Axel is into photography, and I try to give him a photo backdrop. You can see these wainscoting things don't work on the curved wall, so I dropped that idea, and in the end I think I just put like a poster or something behind that wall. And I also put this newspaper thing against the back window that showed a werewolf because I like the idea that Axel is super into movies, but also is into like mythology and lore, and perhaps thinks that werewolves is something that he wants to investigate. I don't know though. Again, I'm projecting into the future when building these rooms because these Sims are not teenagers quite yet. I made sure to give every single teen their own stereo for music for entertainment. You'll see that Axel is the only one with a television. I like to think that Nova made a special exception because Axel prefers to play video games on the TV screen. Otherwise, no TVs in the bedroom would definitely be Nova stands. I also gave Axel and Iris a like sneak out window, that little black one against his desk on the back wall, because I think that these two are going to be really, really close. Not that Cassia isn't close to them. Cassia is just more of a loner and prefers to be on her own most of the time, while I see Axel and Iris as being very social Sims. They're both on the cheer squad. Iris is also a dancer, so I imagine that they will sneak out to quite a few parties. Plus, with the Parenthood pack, I can actually set a curfew for them, so sneaking out will make sense because they're going to have to sneak out in order to break the curfew. In addition to rebuilding the high school lot and rebuilding the auditorium, I also want to build some like abandoned factory type things, just so as a place for like the kids can go to rave. The teens can go to rave. I'm really gonna lean into like the high school movie cliche. They are going to run wild, and I'm so excited. But we'll get that slower perspective with Cassia, who lives downstairs, who's a loner sim, and who'll spend most of her time in her bedroom exploring the world of social media. But I'm super happy with how all of these bedrooms turn out. At this point, I'm just putting the final touches on everything. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Let me know if you're also excited for the high school pack or if you're experiencing any glitches with this new pack update, and I'm going to see you in my next video. Bye, everyone.